Hello there, welcome to Good Morning Transfers. It is decision time for Kylian Mbappe. Will he make the mega move to the Saudi Pro League? We'll assess his options this morning. West Ham are looking for a Declan Rice replacement, but will they be able to get a deal agreed for Conor Gallagher? Plus, Eric Ten Hag tells us the club are doing everything to try and sign a new striker before the start of the Premier League season. Good morning to you at home, and also a very good morning to our guests this morning, Nabaid Haroon, Dan Bardell and James Savundra with us. Remember, you can join the conversation wherever you are as well. Hashtag Transfer Talk. We'll get a bit of your thoughts a little bit later on in the programme. Let's get things started, though, with the major talking point, Kylian Mbappe, who has now a decision to make on his future. Saudi side Al Hilal have had a world record offer of £259 million accepted by PSG. They have now been given permission to talk with the player and his representatives. The money on offer is absolutely eye-watering. So what does he do?
I think most people would agree, if you're sat in Kylian Mbappe's shoes, which I think we'd all love to be sat in, to be honest. If it is the deal we're hearing that it's for a year and he gets to go to Real Madrid at the end and essentially gets paid this incredible amount of money for a single year, he could actually be a billionaire by the time he's 27. From a standpoint of finances, makes sense. Of course, people will say the competitive side and things. He'll only be 25 by the time he goes to Real Madrid. He's still at the peak of his powers. For me, anyway, I think it just makes a lot of sense in Kylian Mbappe's shoes.
Financially, I mean, we talk a lot about we talk a lot about the finances, obviously, but we hear this word legacy a lot in football. Does a player like Kylian Mbappe, undoubtedly one of the best players in the world, have more of a responsibility for a footballing legacy than, say, without any disrespect, some of the players that have gone to Saudi Arabia who are not at the same level? Does he have a different responsibility because of how good he is to leave a footballing legacy?
The thing is, though, I would agree if he was 21 and he was signing a 10-year deal to go to Saudi Arabia. I think the fact that he's only leaving potentially for a year to then end up going to Madrid when he's 25 and he'll still play at least another 5-6 years of Champions League football, at least another 5-6 years of football in La Liga before he decides to do whatever he wants with his career. I know the perception, obviously, is he goes to Saudi and for a year he's pausing his career, but for the type of money he's pausing his career for, I just think he must be sat on his sofa thinking, I can't say no to this deal.
I mean, we've seen a lot of players go to the Saudi Pro League this summer. You've been having a look at some of the biggest names to go there. It's
been quite remarkable, hasn't it? It feels like they are taking over at the moment. Around £180 million spent already, and they could double that, maybe even triple that, if some of the transfers that are rumoured, the likes of Kylian Mbappe, Alan Saint-Maximin, Riyad Mahrez, Jordan Henderson, if those happen, and think about the wages as well. So we've been looking at some of the signings that have been made and some of the managers that have been brought in as well. Steven Gerrard currently at Al Ettifaq, not having a great time so far, it must be said. They haven't won in their first 3 pre-season games. You look at the defence there, it's pretty decent, but the midfield, you could argue, is a world-class midfield. The likes of Ruben Neves, Milinkovic-Savic, Kante would have had a host of different options this summer when it comes to top European sides. And then look at that forward line there. Karim Benzema leaving quite early on in the transfer window. Firmino could still have definitely done a job in the Premier League. And then if Mbappe comes in as well, and it is dominated, you can see the sides there, dominated by the 4 clubs who have been taken over by the Saudi Public Investment Fund, and with potential of the likes of Saint-Maximin, Henderson and Riyad Mahrez joining as well. I'm sure there'll be a few more over the coming months. It does show that the tide is turning. The power of football perhaps moving towards the Middle East at the moment, and some top players leaving to join the Saudi Pro League, many of them still in the peak of their career.
What do we think of that team?
I think you've hit the nail on the head at the start. I think like Ronaldo moving over, he'll almost say he's created something there by going to the Saudi League, and then people have naturally followed him. I think that's how Ronaldo would look at it. But if you look at that team, with the exception of Neves and Mbappe, obviously, they're players who are in their 30s or approaching 30, players who are maybe at the tail end of their career. If Mbappe does take this offer and he goes there for 1 year, there is a danger to the European game that this then becomes the trend. Players think, oh, I'll go over there for 1 or 2 years in my 20s, take the money and then perhaps come back. So I do think it's a danger to the European game that we may well see top players, international class players who are not reaching their peak, players who are like Mbappe, may end up going over there, and that becomes something that becomes the norm. And as someone who obviously is a Premier League fan, you don't want that to happen, because you want the best players to be playing in the Premier League and playing in the Champions League in European competition. So I do think there's a danger that trend starts to emerge if Mbappe does take this money and take this deal.
I would say, though, Milinkovic-Savic is at the peak of his powers as well. He's a midfielder that I think he was linked to multiple Premier League clubs last summer. This window, he's literally just straight away gone to Saudi. I think more players could potentially do it. And personally, from a standpoint of, I'm not a football agent, but if I was an agent to Savic or Mbappe, I'd be saying for a year or two you could go, and the Saudi League clearly want Mbappe to come so that they can attract more players over there of a similar sort of age bracket, maybe. I don't personally go, it's a really bad move for Mbappe's legacy, because ultimately, if he comes back in the following season at Real Madrid, he scores 35 goals in the league, 20 in the Champions League, his legacy just continues. And then someone like Milinkovic-Savic, he could also come back and maybe sign for Manchester United in 2 years, and we'd go, he took a little break in Saudi. It's almost like the reverse of the MLS, when the MLS first came around, where players would leave at the end of their career. I think now they're actually going, let's take a little pit stop in between, and who knows what could happen after.
You'd think as well, someone like Cristiano Ronaldo might be a bit miffed, having been brought in as the poster man of Saudi football, to then get usurped potentially by Kylian Mbappe if that does happen. There's lots of reasons why potentially that might not happen, moving to Saudi Arabia. From our information anyway, from the PSG side, they believe interested clubs include Chelsea, Manchester United, Tottenham, Inter Milan and Barcelona. So we decided to ask Erik ten Hag about bringing Mbappe to Old Trafford.
There's talk that if he rejects that, then PSG would be open to a loan offer. Would that be someone you'd consider, or is that completely out of the question? And also your view on such a huge fee.
No, we never speak about players who are under contract in other clubs.
Michael tried, didn't he? Michael Bridge there with the question. It wasn't a no from Erik ten Hag there. Surely accountants at every Premier League club deemed to be in the Big Six or the Big Eight are going to be tapping the calculators, trying to find out how they can get this deal done. When Mbappe's on the market, you've got to look at it, right?
Yeah, you think so. I think the difficulty will be that I don't think PSG will want him to go on loan, even if it's for a year, to a club that's in the Champions League. They've been after the Champions League now for a number of years. They've come close on occasion, but largely they've failed, haven't they? They've spent all this money and they've really failed. The Champions League has been the trophy that they've wanted to deliver. It's all well and good winning the French stuff every season. They have put their eggs in the Champions League basket and they have not delivered it. So they'll be wary of loaning Mbappe out to a Manchester United, for example, or one of the other English teams in the Champions League. They wouldn't want to loan him out and then he goes and wins the Champions League somewhere else. That would be abject failure on their behalf, wouldn't it, if Mbappe didn't win it with them and he goes to an English team and wins the Champions League. But then the teams that aren't in the Champions League, have they got the pulling power? Would Mbappe be willing to I suppose maybe he's willing to, he'll be missing a year of Champions League if he goes to Saudi, won't he? So, but I can't, unless it was Chelsea, like Spurs were linked yesterday, I can't see him going to Tottenham, with all due respect to them. So I don't see a Premier League move materialising at this stage, but this transfer window all sorts can happen, can't it? So we'll see what happens as the window moves on.
It seems like we're almost ruling out Premier League there. Saudi, we're listing off reasons why that might not happen. So it's Real Madrid or bust.
Yeah, and Real Madrid are in an interesting position at the moment. They may feel like, with what's going on with Mbappe at the moment, perhaps they already thought they'd be getting him for free next summer. But with what's happening over the last few days and developments all the time here, you do wonder if they feel like they may have to be forced to come to the table to ensure that Mbappe does become a Real Madrid player this season, rather than what they thought may be the case. And PSG are convinced that they've already agreed a deal, Mbappe and Real Madrid, that he'll join for free next summer. I think PSG are in a position now, they want to sell to the highest bidder. I don't think they can quite believe the bid they've been offered at the moment when it comes to Mbappe. They were looking for around £150 million if they could get it this summer, but that deal blows out of the water if Mbappe agrees to join the Saudi Pro League. But I think the only way he can move to a Premier League club is if it gets towards the end of this transfer window. It doesn't look like a big transfer is going to take place. Ideally, they want a big transfer fee. Worst case scenario, it would be a loan deal where they're getting at least some money and not paying his wages over this period of time. So I wouldn't rule out a Premier League move out but I don't think that's something realistically that will happen until towards the end of the window if PSG become desperate.
I think with the other clubs that have been listed, it would be like taking an opportunity, wouldn't it? Whereas with Real Madrid, they need a forward, they need a centre forward, and it feels like they've been planning for Mbappe because Josselu's come in. Doesn't feel like the man who's going to lead Real Madrid's attack going for the Champions League. So they're waiting for Mbappe. They're the ones that we think he's going to go to. With the other clubs, it would almost be like they'd have to create a space for him. They won't have pre-planned for that. So it still feels like, to me, Real Madrid will be where he ends up. It's just this bridge period in between. What's going to happen?
Certainly going to be an intriguing 24, 48 hours to see how this develops. I mean, one man who certainly wouldn't turn down the Saudi money is NBA superstar Giannis. I don't know whether you saw this overnight. He jokingly tweeted, "Al Hilal, you can take me. I look like Kylian Mbappe," he says. And Mbappe himself responded with 13 crying laughter emojis. I don't know whether he would respond with those laughter emojis if the move to Saudi was on. Anyway, lots of money on offer. Giannis is on a bumper contract himself, a measly 30 million a year. So he fancies a move to Saudi. So we'll see what happens with Kylian Mbappe over the next 24, 48 hours. One transfer line to bring you this morning, and centre-back Igor Julio is due to have a medical today ahead of his proposed move to Brighton from Fiorentina. We understand the deal to be worth around £14 million. And also to update you on reports this morning from Sky in Germany, their reporter Florian Plettenberg says that Liverpool are now favourites to sign Southampton's Romeo Lavia. No agreement between the clubs, but he says that negotiations are ongoing. We're looking into that story here at Sky Sports News, and we'll bring you updates as soon as we have them for you. But those two lines, just to bring you up to speed with happening this morning here on Good Morning Transfers. Still ahead today, Arsenal have spent a lot this summer already, but could we see more incomings? We'll discuss that next. Stay with us.
Sky Sports News, sponsored by Shaw Non-Stop Protection.
The surgeon, he told me the lifestyle I had 6 months to live. All I could think about was just leaving my wife and kids behind. You know, what future are they going to have? Life insurance is a sore subject because we don't like to talk or think about death, and we should do. We should be planning ahead for our families. I don't want to miss a single bit of my kid's life, but if I don't get the choice and I pass away, I want to make sure my family is protected. Get a free quote from tom.co.uk now.
Hiya. Americano, please. Your house blend. Splash of oat milk.
Are you going to do this every time?
Nescafe Azura Americano.
So you're paying contactless or...?
Irresistibly smooth barista-style coffee at home.
Welcome to Sapphire. We take pride in being a fully regulated clinic, holding ourselves to the highest standards. We're not here to get you high. Pipes are not our cup of tea. These brownies, they are just plain, regular brownies. You can trust Sapphire for expert and reliable guidance. Interested? Search for Sapphire Clinics online to find out more about booking a consultation.
Hey, Doc, what can a Newman Fear Nothing blood test really test?
Kidney, liver, thyroid, heart, and more.
So it can know a man's body, but can it know his mind?
No.
Interesting. Order your Fear Nothing blood test at Newman.com.
Formula One fans, get race ready at fanatics.co.uk with official team products shipped right to your door. Fanatics.co.uk, officially licensed everything.
Do it, Sandra.
Welcome back. This is Good Morning Transfers. We were talking a little bit before the break about Florian Plettenberg, the Sky in Germany reporter, saying that Liverpool now favourites to sign Southampton's Romeo Lavia. James, you got a bit of an update? Yeah,
very quick update. Southampton play Bournemouth tonight at St Mary's, a pre-season friendly going on, and Lavia will be part of the squad. He will play tonight at St Mary's. That's despite the intense speculation around his future. And as things stand, as far as Southampton are concerned, and their playing and coaching squad is business as usual. And let's bear in mind their first game of the Championship season takes place next Friday against Sheffield Wednesday, live on Sky Sports. So as far as Southampton are concerned, he's part of the squad and he will be playing this evening.
OK, any more on that, we will bring it to you here on Sky Sports News. Let's switch focus and talk a bit about West Ham this morning. They're still looking to find a replacement for Declan Rice. They've seen a £40 million bid rejected for Chelsea midfielder Conor Gallagher. West Ham now at the point where they are deciding whether to go back in with an improved offer. He has 2 years left on his contract. Chelsea have lost a number of experienced central midfielders. Can you see them sanctioning now a move for Conor Gallagher away from the club?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because Chelsea aren't blessed with an abundance of central midfielders at the moment. From looking at pre-season and speaking to Chelsea fans, it's clear that Poch is going to play this 4-2-3-1, which I would say leaves Gallagher a little bit in limbo because he's not really a number 6, and I wouldn't say he's creative enough to be a number 10 either. His best season was at Crystal Palace playing as a number 8, and he had a really, really good season. I think it maybe gets forgotten a little bit how good he was at Crystal Palace. I know we've got some stats that will come up on the screen and look at his time at Crystal Palace compared to his season at Chelsea. You know, a lot of those games for Chelsea, it's worth saying, would not have been starts. 3 goals, 1 assist. But if you look across at the other side to Crystal Palace, when he's got that rhythm, when he was playing every single week, he's got that consistency, you can get into that rhythm. His numbers were really, really strong. And as I've said, he had a really, really good season for Crystal Palace. That was a system that was not built around him, but it really facilitated what he was good at. It suited him. I just think the way Poch is going to play, on the face of it, he's a very good presser. But the system doesn't really allow for him to be in that position and do the things that he wants to do. I don't think on the ball he's got the ball playing ability to be a number 6 either. But because Chelsea are so light at the moment, I don't think they can sanction a move. They definitely need at least one player in who we're going to come on to later in the show, but they might even need 2. Number 6 is to come into the club Chelsea at the moment. So Gallagher's a little bit in limbo. I feel a bit sorry for him because it feels like every window his future's a little bit up in the air. We talked about him a lot in January when Chelsea were signing all those players. He's ended up staying, and to be fair, he did play a lot of football in the second half of the season. But I just think if Gallagher's going to reach his potential and be allowed to do the things that he's good at, he needs to go somewhere permanently, but he's got to be careful with which club he chooses. I look at West Ham as well and think, is that the right fit at the moment? He wouldn't be a like-for-like replacement for Declan Rice. West Ham are in the position where they're probably going to have to look and rebuild the entirety of their midfield. Souček's form's falling off a little bit from where it was a year or 2 ago as well. So Gallagher's next move's going to be interesting, but I don't know where that would be at the moment.
When do West Ham fans start to worry about no reinforcements?
Probably 20 days ago. The moment the Rice deal got quote-unquote confirmed and obviously took a while to come through, I think at that point they would have gone, everyone knows that we've got 100 million in the bank, or potentially 100 million in the bank. And the moment other clubs know that, in the same way Chelsea have rejected 40 million, they're probably saying, well, we know you've got 100, give us 50 or 60. They definitely need at least one new midfielder. I actually think Conor Gallagher could work, depending on what happens with Souček, who maybe they need to push him back into the holding position like he has been and let Gallagher play box-to-box like Rice potentially could at times. And then you probably need to add another body in there. They probably need a centre-back because they often, I think they're cursed with injuries, to be honest, at centre-back. Then there's maybe a need for a striker because Mikel Antonio might be heading out. We've obviously seen Antonio's comments about Scamacca not working with Moyes. And so they're in a situation where I think West Ham fans are probably looking at the rest of the league saying, well, we've lost our best player. We've made a lot of money on that deal, and now we need to spend that money. The season's round the corner, and we've got 3 or 4 positions we need to improve. And to be honest, the market, despite there being a lot of moves, there isn't a lot of options out there that you can sort of spend your 100 million across 4 players. It might end up being 2 signings by the end of the window.
I will say it's pretty negligent by West Ham. They knew Declan Rice was going to be going, so to be this close to the new season and not have even bought in one midfielder, they knew he was going. If I was a West Ham fan, that would concern me slightly.
Well, it was Arsenal who spent the money on Declan Rice, and let's talk a little bit more about Arsenal. We can talk now to broadcaster and Arsenal fan Pippa Monique. Morning to you, Pippa. Welcome to Good Morning Transfers. Big summer already, as we've been talking about. What have you made of Arsenal's business so far?
Morning, guys. How you doing? I mean, it's been an exciting transfer window so far. I mean, we're actually going for targets that we wanted. They're getting Declan Rice finally over the line after months of speculation and waiting for him to actually appear at the Emirates. It's been a great summer so far, and of course the arrival of Julian Timber and Kai Havertz, yet to still see them shine. But of course we're only in pre-season, so I'm glad that we're adding bolsters to the squad, ready for Champions League and Premier League football, and of course the other competitions too.
So you mentioned those incomings there. Do you believe you have enough now, or is more needed?
I mean, I hate to be too greedy, but always, if there's options for more, we should go for it. But at the same time, I hate when you throw too many ingredients in the pot just because you have them. I mean, it's a lot to get used to, and the new players already haven't even played a proper 90 minutes together. But if we could get more players, of course, I mean, the prospect of Elise joining, I don't want to mention too many names, but of course, bolstering the central midfield as well, because there's still speculation whether certain players are staying or going. So, yeah, a couple attacking options, depending on who's staying or going, and of course, midfield as well.
And let's talk about Declan Rice then. He was clearly the main target this summer. It took a little bit of time to get that one done. Are you pleased to see that one get over the line? What do you think he'll offer?
Yeah, I was a bit hot and cold with the transfer for a long while, but now that he's arrived, I'm super excited. I've always liked Declan Rice as a player, a proper captain, a proper leader, young player as well, and it's always great to have English players in the squad as well. And to see what he's done at West Ham, I'm glad that he left West Ham on a high, winning that European trophy, and to come into the Arsenal squad, so other youngsters around him that he's familiar with from the England squad, and to have another player add to that little leadership circle, I think is great. And what it can add to that midfield would be amazing for Arsenal. I mean, what we've seen so far in pre-season hasn't been the greatest, but we cannot judge everything from a couple of pre-season matches. I'm sure once he's settled in properly, he already says it feels like home. I'm sure we'll see the best of Declan Rice in an Arsenal shirt.
So it looks like the focus for the moment has switched to departures a little bit for Arsenal now. Who do you think could leave? You touched on potential departures, but who do you think might end up leaving before the window closes?
So with Kieran Tierney, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I don't know what he has to do to get a start in the team, and there's players that are playing in his position that are not actual left back. So there could be a possibility, even though he said he's happy staying at Arsenal. For a moment, I even forgot last season and during this window that we still had Pepe on our books. So I'm sure that we'll see a contract termination there. Possibly, I don't know, the speculations with our midfielder, Thomas Partey, but then they're saying he's staying now, so I'm not quite sure. But possibly Cedric Suarez, Sambi Lokonga, I think those are the names that are probably going to be off the book soon. And in terms of forwards, not sure what's going on with Balogun and Nketiah. Would one of them stay, one of them go, or will they both stay? I'm not sure. But there's still chances that they could be leaving. One of them could be leaving.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Balogun then. I mean, he had a terrific season in Liga last year. Understandably, he may not want to sit on the bench and play second fiddle to a Gabriel Jesus, but Arsenal potentially looking for upwards of 40-50 million for him. Can you see him contributing this season?
Well, yeah, if he gets a chance, of course. I mean, once you get players who, with strikers, they need a run out of games. You can't play a couple minutes here and there and expect to bang in goals. If he gets a run of 10, 15 games, of course, we're going to see the best of him like we did in Liga. But if he doesn't play and he's sat on the bench for a majority of the season, I don't understand why he would want to stay. Of course, the fans want to see him play and give him a chance to see what he can do in an Arsenal shirt, because we've seen what, of course, Gabriel Jesus can do. We know what he can do. We've seen what Nketiah can do, but we haven't actually had a chance to see what Balogun can do in an Arsenal shirt. So it'll be interesting to see what Mikel Arteta has planned for him this season.
One word answer. If the transfer window ended tomorrow, would you be happy?
I wouldn't be sad. One word answer. No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't be sad.
Pippa, great to speak to you this morning. Thanks for coming on.
You too. Take care. Thank you, guys.
Now, if you are watching us on Main Event, you're leaving us for Tokyo as Stephen Fulton puts his WBO and WBC Super Bantamweight titles on the line against Naoya Inoue. Should be a good one, that. We'll continue sparring. No? Next here on Good Morning Transfers. Stay with us on Sky Sports News. We're talking Manchester United. Will they get their hands on a new striker soon?
Sky Sports News, sponsored by Shaw Non-Stop Protection.
Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. Joining the conversation at home using the hashtag Transfer Talk. We've got a quick line to bring you this morning regarding Kyle Walker. Now, we are told he is expected to be left out of the Manchester City side for the match against Bayern Munich tomorrow as discussions continue about his possible move to the Bundesliga. Negotiations, we're told, over his future are at a sensitive stage, so it's thought he's going to be taken out of the firing line for the game against Bayern. Walker has told Pep Guardiola that he is keen to speak to Bayern about a possible transfer, which is likely to be worth around £13 million. Club officials, we're told, are aware of the awkwardness, shall we say, if Walker is to play against the team that he may end up joining in the coming days. So it's expected that he's going to be left out. City currently offering Walker a one-year extension to his existing contract at the Etihad. He's got a year left to run on that. Bayern thought to be offering him a 2-year deal with the option of a third. So that's the latest on Kyle Walker. Looks like he's going to be left out of Manchester City's next pre-season friendly. What do you make of, Dan, of the makeup of City's squad at the moment and potential departures?
It's a little bit on the small side, I would say, which sounds ridiculous to say about the best team on the planet, at the moment, Manchester City, but they're kind of lacking a little bit of depth already, I would say, particularly in central midfield and the full-back areas. You think Cancelo's going to move on, you think Laporte's going to move on as well, but they've obviously got a replacement who's looking like he's coming in for him. They're not really going to have any fullbacks on the books. They've got Lewis coming through, played a fair amount of games last season, but Pep has obviously got a plan somewhere that we don't know about. We saw the way he played with so many centre-backs in certain games last season. But in big games, and we've seen this for England and for Manchester City, I don't think there's anyone better to have at right-back than Kyle Walker. Perhaps the player wants a little bit more security. James was just saying of that extra year if he does opt to go to Bayern City with only the 1-year option on the table. But still at his age, he is a very good operator at right-back. So it's a real strange one for me. Man City aren't really been linked with any incomings either other than Gvardiol. So I'm interested to see what happens with them. But it seems a strange thing they're up to at the moment with their squad building.
Still one of the best 1v1 defenders in the world, Kyle Walker.
Yeah, I guess it's a situation where City want to build forward. Akanji did play right back at times last season. Obviously, completely different profile to Kyle Walker. I think often he's referred to as like a cheat code, where if you've got a winger who's rapid, doesn't matter because Kyle Walker's the last man back. So they will miss that element of his game. But at the same time, I do understand that, you know, none of us are football managers here, and Pep Guardiola's got a plan that we can't argue with. So I'd imagine he's got a plan to maybe play Akanji permanently at right back. And then obviously with potentially Gvardiol arriving, I think there may just be a shift in the makeup. And as a football purist, I want to just see what Pep's up to.
To be fair to Man City, when players have wanted to leave, they don't usually stand in the way. That is the way they do business. And we know now that even the elite clubs, they've all got an eye on financial fair play. So if you can pull some money back from a sale of a 33-year-old, I think Kyle Walker is, and obviously that helps with the books and bringing people in. But, you know, we're not really talking about Manchester City bringing people in. We've been here 2 days now, and Manchester City haven't really come up as incomings, which I find fascinating.
Pep must have a plan. It's quite strange seeing this treble-winning side being broken up somewhat now. Gundogan leaving, Walker could be on his way. We think Mahrez is going to the Saudi Pro League as well. And as you say, not too many players linked with joining the club. But Pep, knowing him, he'll know exactly what he's got up his sleeve this season. But I think for Walker, he's probably looking at it 33 years of age. And our understanding is he's not desperate to move away from Man City. He's also not desperate to go to the Bundesliga. It's a case of, if this offer is on the table from Bayern, a lucrative contract, the option of 2 years plus one, and you say he's fit as a fiddle, isn't it? And quite incredible to see the way he performs against elite operators like Mbappe, as he did in the World Cup. So I think it's a case of, for him, he's looking after his own future, 33 years of age. And one thing it has done is it's upset a few people in Germany, the fact that a player his age is being offered such a long contract. Usually Bayern, as Man City have done, and that's why Gundogan partly left the club. They didn't offer him more than a 1-year contract. The fact Kyle Walker at 33 years of age has been offered the potential of 3 years hasn't gone down too well with some of the players in that squad. So I think he'll leave with Man City's blessing. And as Dan said there, they don't like to stand in players' way. So Pep Guardiola wouldn't want to have a player who doesn't want to be there. But saying that, I don't think Walker is too fussed about where he goes, whether he stays at Man City but is given a longer contract, or he gets his wonderful opportunity to play under Thomas Tuchel.
Been a good servant, hasn't he? But I just wonder if he does go to Bayern. a friend there for Harry Kane already waiting.
Stop it! Stop! You'll get the Spurs fans on.
Well, I'm just they are mates. They are mates. Might help.
Yeah, so just to update you, what we were talking about there, Kyle Walker expected to be left out of the Manchester City side for the game against Bayern Munich. Any further developments, we'll, of course, bring them to you here. Let's talk about Manchester United. They've acted fairly quickly so far in this transfer window. Attention is now turning to a striker. And Erik ten Hag, as you might expect, is very keen on trying to get one over the line very soon.
What I can say is we do everything what's in our power to get that done, and it's up to me, as soon as possible. How earlier, the better, because we have to integrate them in the team, in the way of play. So, in an ideal situation, he was already here, but you're not always getting ideal situations as manager, and that is then you have to deal with the situation.
And you were asked about an attacker the other day. There's been a lot of talk since then. I just wondering if you've made any progress in getting that striker that you need over the line.
We make progress, yeah. But if you know how it works, when we have him, we will tell you directly.
Ten Hag speaking on the club's pre-season tour of America there, and we can head back out to San Diego now and join Michael Bridge, who's with our very own Flex.
Yes, hello all of you in the studio. Flex and I are currently in San Diego. Someone's got to do it, and they Flex it.
It's not bad, is it?
No.
You know, we've got to do it. We've got to do it.
Look, let's talk United's transfers really quickly. In terms of incomings, are you happy with what you've got so far?
Yes, definitely. I think Andre Onana is a perfect signing for us right now. He's the perfect player for the perfect manager at the perfect team for the perfect price. I've said that quite a few times, and that's exactly what he is for Manchester United. He's completely transformative. David De Gea, obviously a Manchester United legend, but it came to a natural, I think, conclusion. I think Eric wanted to go in a different direction with how he wants us to play, and I think he spoke about it in the press conferences while we've been here, and you would have probably heard him say it, that he is a character, but who better person to kind of manage that character than Erik ten Hag, who's worked with him before, completely knows his qualities. I asked him in press conference before this one about how long it's going to take him to adapt to his new teammates and vice versa, and he says he expects it to not be that long. He knows the standards, he's a winner, he's up for the challenge, and that's a fantastic signing. Mason Mount, I know that it came as a bit of a surprise because all of the back end of last season was who Manchester United going to get, Harry Kane or Victor Osimhen, and then it was Mason Mount, which kind of came out of the blue, but he's Manchester United's new number 7 and someone that Erik ten Hag rates really highly. He's very competent on the ball, good technical player. And we need more players like that at the club if we want to change the way we play. So I think Mason Mount will be really good. And we've seen glimpses in the games against Arsenal, in the game out there in Norway as well. We've seen little glimpses of what he's going to be able to do. So 2 really good signings, and obviously we're working on a forward as well.
A few of them we understand will be going out. Yeah. Then if they do go out, is there room for maybe another midfielder?
I think as long as Manchester United get a forward, then I would say yes. However, what is interesting is the emergence of Kobbie Mainoo. Because if, funds are relatively tight and maybe need to be spread elsewhere, if you're talking about maybe Sofyan Amrabat or somebody else for sort of 25 million, there's a decision to say, well, could we top up get another forward for 25 million elsewhere and maybe trust Kobbie Mainoo to have that breakout Garnacho season and maybe not spend there? There's no real right or wrong answer, and that's a gamble either way. But I think there's definitely scope for another one on top of the striker for sure. And I know Sofyan Amrabat is one who we'll probably be talking a lot about on the transfer show this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And you will be on the transfer shows from next week?
Yes, I'll be in there.
You're
Not on with, they've kept us apart.
Yeah, they kept us apart this time. But we'll be back next week in the studio. But Flex, all United maybe have a new striker this time next week. But one thing we do know is it's been a really good tour for Manchester United so far. And we'll be at Wrexham this evening for a big game for United's under-23s. Can they impress Ten Hag ahead of a big season for them?
They look like they're enjoying themselves out in San Diego, don't they? A quick update reaching us. Everton, we are told, remain in negotiations with Almeria over the transfer of El Bilal Touré. Now, you may have seen reports from other outlets suggesting that the player had already decided to join Atalanta. But we're told the 21-year-old Mali striker is set to decide his future in the coming days. Nothing decided yet. Everton having agreed a deal already with the La Liga club. So the battle for El Bilal Touré is not quite over yet, according to our information for Everton supporters. The future of the Atalanta striker may well have, of El Bilal Touré perhaps going to Atalanta, may have a knock-on effect for Højlund, and he is the one that Manchester United seem like they are pursuing with the most intent at the moment. Where are we at with Rasmus Højlund?
Well, in the coming days, we're expecting United to formalise their interests in Højlund. Positive talks have continued between the two clubs over recent weeks. But United, as they did with Mason Mount and Andre Onana, they have a valuation. They're not willing to overpay. And there is a feeling at the moment that Atlanta's asking price would have to come down somewhat for United to be able to do that deal and fit within financial fair play rules and their own financial constraints. But one thing United are encouraged by is the players' desire to join, and it's not expected personal terms will be a problem. But United have continued discussions with other targets as well. Kolo Muani remains a strong option for them, and you can understand why Erik ten Hag is so desperate to sign a striker. Anthony Martial back in training but missed 34 matches last season, didn't complete a full match, and they only scored 58 goals in the Premier League last year, propped up really by Marcus Rashford's goals. Whether or not he can do the same next season, we wait to see, but you can see Erik ten Hag is desperate to get a man in soon, because it's not long until the season starts, and to get a player integrated in pre-season we're absolutely key, because we know what Erik ten Hag wants from his players is probably slightly different from what these players are used to playing elsewhere.
Is a striker the final piece of the puzzle for United? Does it turn them into title contenders, or more so title contenders this season?
I think for Manchester United now, it's a case of just continuing to build and continuing to head in the right direction. I really like what they did last season. I think Ten Hag's a really intelligent manager. I think he brings in players to suit what he wants to do. But when you've just had a positive season like they have, you don't build by just buying 5-6 players. You build steadily. You bring in 3 players that suit exactly what you want to do. And I think Manchester United were excellent last season. Really good season, heading in the right direction. But I never got the impression that they would gone full Ten Hag, if that makes sense. I don't think they were full tilt in what Ten Hag wants to do. It was kind of more about putting the building blocks in place and getting slowly to where he wanted them to be at. Now, I think the signings of Onana and Mount, I think they help him do that. Onana can do a lot of the things that De Gea just wasn't capable of doing, so he'll advance the way that Manchester United play going forwards, which sounds stupid for a goalkeeper, but he really will. Mount is one of the most intelligent pressing footballers that there is. Erik ten Hag will be able to give him a job, and he's diligent enough to be able to carry out exactly what Ten Hag wants. If they can then add a striker to that, which I think is, maybe you're right, is the final piece of what they're missing, that will take them up further, and that's 3 players that have then come in and make Manchester United better and enable them to play more like the way Ten Hag wants them to play. But it has to be the right striker. Højlund looks good. He's got facets that remind me a little bit of Haaland. He's got some size about him as well, but he is raw. He's not the finished article. I just think at the moment, Manchester United, they need a striker, but it has to be the right striker. But I think Ten Hag's done enough now that if he's identified Højlund, Manchester United hierarchy's got to trust him. They've got to back him and go and get the man, because they're building in the right way. They're building slowly, but they're building on what I would say is the foundation of a really good side. Now, I don't think they're too far away at all.
The good thing about this deal for me is that they're going for someone who's pretty young. I think previously, Onana's already the perfect player. Mount's, I know people will disagree, but I think Mount's actually more made for Ten Hag than he was for Chelsea in the end. Yeah. And Højlund, I think, actually is a really smart signing. Obviously, depends on the fee. Atlanta want a lot of money, but he's got a brilliant knack in the box. His presence in the penalty area is really good. Arrives in the right spaces. He's got really good body feints, and I don't want to say it too loudly because it will get clipped, but the Erling Haaland comparison, I can see it, and it's not just because he's got long blonde hair. He's a physical specimen, and ultimately, when you've got a kid of that size, if you've got him in the right place and at the right club with the right coach, he's only going to go in one direction, because he's got the sort of like the perfect base that you need as a centre-forward to score goals, and he does it for Atalanta. And I honestly, so far, Ten Hag hasn't had a signing wrong, I don't think, has he?
No, Anthony's still got a bit to prove. Malacia's not quite been at the level required, but I think maybe another season of Anthony, hopefully we'll see the best of him. But I think you're right. I think when it comes to Ten Hag, all the signings so far, you look at the question marks around Martinez after the first 2 games of the season. Was he too small to play in the Premier League? He's been remarkable. Eriksen, it was felt that what could he do? He had a brilliant time at Brentford over that 6-month period, but he proved to be a really good signing. And now that they've got Mason Mount in as well, it means that when there are injuries in key areas or Casemiro gets banned for a few games, then they do have those options. I think he's earned the right now, Ten Hag, as you guys have been saying. If he wants a player, like he wants Onana, go after him, because he's not been too much wrong. He's not done much wrong so far at Man United. I think they probably are one player away, one striker away from being the finished article maybe not quite challenging Man City and maybe even, say, Arsenal now, what they've done. But one thing I do worry about Højlund is the fact that he is so raw. He almost needs to go to finishing school before he joins a club like Man United as their number 9. Just 8 goals in Serie A last season. A huge amount of pressure for him to come in at that age and be the number 9 for Manchester United. I still think Harry Kane is the obvious choice, but we know for financial reasons and because of Spurs' stance, at that moment in time, at this moment in time, it looks unlikely they'll be able to get him.
Yeah, I think some great points there. I think we are going to see a development in Ten Hag's football this season, aren't we? If you looked at the kind of weaknesses of Manchester United last season, it was build up from the back and it was out of possession when you're pressing the opposition. So Mount obviously ticks that box and Onana ticks the other box as well.
If you're building a team, sorry Dave, as well, the important thing to do is sort the defence out and get the home form right first. I think they let in less than 10 goals at Old Trafford last season, and you think that Onana's only going to add to the solidarity of the defence and just enable them to play that little bit higher up as well. I think that's going to be really important.
Yeah, Manchester United fans, you can have your say as well. Hashtag transfer talk. If you think United need to strengthen in other areas, do let us know. On the way next, we're going to talk Chelsea. They're in the market for more players, as they seem to always be. Will Moyes Caicedo end up at the club this summer? We'll talk about that next. Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. Thanks for being with us this morning. We're going to talk about Brighton midfielder Moise Caicedo now, as we did in January, really. Chelsea want to sign the player. As it stands, though, there is still a gap in valuation between Brighton and Chelsea. No breakthrough for a while now, really, on this one. Dan, how do we think it's eventually going to play out?
I think Poch needs this player. I think the club have done a great job, Chelsea, of getting players off the books and freeing up some finances. They're going to have to pay the money that Brighton want. We know Brighton are tough negotiators. They're really hard to pull players away from in terms of getting the price that they want. So Chelsea need him. I think he will end up at Chelsea. Brighton have done such a good job of losing players, replacing them, starting to build a team again, and have got better year on year. I do think losing McAllister and Caicedo in the same window, that's a tough one to recover from. So I think they're right to put on the high price that they've put on. Caicedo, obviously there was some hijinks with him in January and social media posts, but then you've signed a new contract. So I don't think you can have too many complaints. Brighton are well within their rights to ask for what they're asking for from Chelsea. And I think the fact that they have lost McAllister for what was actually quite cheap in the modern day market, they're entitled to ask for the money that they're asking for Caicedo. But I think Chelsea need that player. They desperately need a number 6. We were discussing earlier the lack of depth in their central midfield area. So I think it will get done and Chelsea will get him. But if it does happen, it will be for a hell of a lot of money. Also, the market has been inflated because Declan Rice has gone for 100 million. And Brighton, initially, I think in January, were asking for a similar sum of money for Caicedo then. Then he signed a new deal, and Brighton are very good at protecting their assets. And to be fair to him, towards the end of last season, people were once again speaking about him as one of the best players in the league. So it wasn't a case of, yes, he put a few things on social media, but he didn't just give up. He carried on going, and Brighton may say to him, maybe in a Borussia Dortmund model, that we've let go of McAllister this window, maybe stay till January or next summer, and then we see where to go. But then there's obviously the Levi Colwill thing going on as well. So maybe Brighton might try and pull and push something there. It would make a lot of sense for Brighton if they could manage to keep him and maybe let go of Moise Caicedo. But whatever happens, Chelsea have to get Caicedo. It strikes me that the relationship between Brighton and Chelsea isn't good. There's been a lot happen between those two clubs in the last 12 months. So again, maybe even that aspect inflates the fee a little bit. Chelsea, so I don't think they want to lose Colwill. I think he'll form part of their first team squad. I think he's a Poch kind of player, isn't he? So Brighton probably want him, and Chelsea are saying no. So why should Brighton any difference?
That could have really helped negotiations if Chelsea are willing to let Colwill go. But Mauricio Pochettino was speaking over the weekend and said he's got the potential to be one of the best centre-backs in Britain, which is some saying, and a lot of Chelsea fans you speak to think that he could be a real big part of the side and potentially start the majority of matches this season. But if Brighton had the ability to sign Colwill, that would help Chelsea with the negotiations for Caicedo. I think you're completely right. They look pretty strong across the squad now. I think they've got rid of a number of players. The ones they brought in look exciting. The numbers they brought in January and last season, who had a bit more time to integrate, been out on loan, look like they're slightly more Premier League ready now. But in centre midfield, you're looking at Conor Gallagher and Enzo Fernandez being probably the most senior midfield options they've got. And it's incredible to think Gallagher is the most senior central midfielder they have, and he's 25 years of age.
I mean, on Colwill, why would Chelsea sell their best centre-back? I think he's already their best centre-back. Don't at me.
Fofana injured as well again.
I mean, Caicedo, just to go back to that one, what Brighton don't want is what happened, the situation that happened in January where he had to stay away from the training ground, ended up posting this post on social media about thanking everyone, and then ended up staying. They don't want that situation to happen before the start of the season.
No, they don't. But Brighton won't be governed by a player or an agent trying to make a move happen, because they'll have their price for him, and that won't alter based on Caicedo potentially acting up, which there are no reports so far that he has been whatsoever. But you look at what they've done in recent years with the likes of Ben White, Marc Cucurella, Leandro Trossard in January as well. They're not going to sell him on the cheap just because the player wants to move. You're right, he signed a new contract recently, despite the fact that Roberto De Zerbi, he's refreshing, he's so honest in press conferences. He actually said at the end of last season, yes, it's likely McAllister and Caicedo will leave the club. McAllister's gone. Caicedo probably thinks that he'll get this move, but as Nube was saying there, Brighton value Caicedo in a similar bracket to what Declan Rice was valued by West Ham, £105 million. That's pretty much what Chelsea spent on Enzo Fernandez. Are they willing to go that far to go and get their man? It feels like they need him. but are they going to be willing to go above what we think they're offering at the moment, which is around £70 million?
Plenty to talk about with Chelsea and Brighton, and I'm sure Caicedo will continue to rumble on. Caicedo, from what we know anyway, wants to make a move this summer. In personal terms, if he's talking to Chelsea or eventually talks to Chelsea, not expected to be a problem. That's all we've got time for the moment. Nabe, Dan, James, thank you very much. More transfer news a little bit later on. We've got transfer talk at midday. Do join us for that in a couple of hours. And on the way next, we're going to talk Kylian Mbappe. Kaveh Solokol, our chief reporter, is here with some news. Stay with us.